Hello everyone! Welcome back to the studio for this week's episode of Tutorial Tuesday. I'm so happy you're here with me in the studio. My name is Kaylee. I paint wet on wet landscape oil paintings, and today we're here for pretty challenging and enjoyable, I think, painting. I'm going to be painting kind of a mountain scene and adding a train at the end, so I'm really excited. I've been kind of holding off on painting a train for a really long time, just like the rainbow last week. But I'm feeling this new sense of ambition and I thought I would just go for it. So it'll probably be a little bit bumpy here and there, but we're combining a lot of really simple elements with this wet on wet process. So I'm pretty excited. I hope you'll stay tuned to the very end to see the completed train scene, kind of set in a little bit of an autumn mood. Yeah, let's just jump right into it. I'm going to be using my standard 18 by 24 inch canvas up here. And then if you do want to paint along, be sure to check the description below for the paint list, and I'll include the whole list down there. We'll have the camera of all of the paints. They'll be right along this area for the majority of the painting. So be sure to check in down there if you're confused about what I'm talking about paint-wise. Today I will probably be using some of my sable brushes. I just got in a new package. I was so excited. I use these quite a lot, but I'm not very good at cleaning them. So anyway, I kind of have to buy them pretty often, but they're not really that expensive. So it's a really good deal. These ones, they definitely include cleaning instructions on the back, but you know, you can do whatever you want. This is a round set, so I'm pretty excited. They work really, really well for softening clouds and making nice foamy things, misty things happen and all that good stuff. So anyway, I'll put those away. We might use them later. I'm going to grab just one and set that aside for me. And let's jump right into it. 18 by 24 inch canvas has been prepped with a very thin, even coat of liquid white, and it's ready to go. And let's see. So to start this off, we're going to have kind of a gray sky. I'm going to grab my 1-inch brush, make sure that's good and clean. And I'm going to mix up my equal parts alizarin crimson and phthalo green. This is going to get us a nice gray mixture. Just pick it up and flip it over. And I'm going to grab a little bit more crimson. It's mostly equal parts, but I generally find that a tiny bit more crimson to phthalo green is necessary just to get that rich dark color and to have it not be super green. So let's flip that over one more time, grab a tiny bit more crimson. Now we almost have two versions here, a nice rich gray and then kind of a little bit more of a green gray color that we'll be able to work in to our misty clouds later. To start this little scene off, we're going to have just a little bit of sky playing through, but we're kind of down in the canyon of this scene looking out, and up here we have just a real nice, lovely mist happening. And it's going to be popping into some clouds down here. So we'll just work in a touch of this gray, kind of in some swirls down here, a little bit of movement. Maybe a touch extra dark up here. I want it a little bit more moody up here. Ooh, that's nice. Now, I'm going to use this color and just get it also incorporated into the bottom of our scene. There's not going to be any water in this scene, but we still are benefited by applying the paint on the canvas flat down here. We can always come back and add some texture or little layers and shapes and stuff later, but we are going to have a train track kind of coming in down here, and I want to harmonize our colors, so we're using the same gray down below. We'll use our gradients to our advantage here, getting our darkest parts on the corners and lightening it as we move up. We'll go just about there on both sides. Nice. I'm going to pick up my 2-inch brush, make sure that's clean. Even though you clean all your stuff, just double check it. It's just easier that way. Sometimes the blues like to stick a little bit, especially with the paint wash. But I paint so often, my brushes very rarely dry out all of the way, so I don't really have much issue with my brushes sticking together, except for the aforementioned sable brushes and my lack of cleaning on that, but we'll just pretend that didn't happen. I clean my brushes all the time and I never waste them. Also not true. I do my best. We all do. I'm gonna wipe some of this off. I intentionally applied a lot of paint up here so it would be nice and dark. So we'll just kind of lightly move that back around to get some of our clouds, kind of get some movement in that sky. And we can just kind of clean out the brush down here. And if you're having trouble holding onto the brush, I like to choke up onto it. It's a little bit easier. And we'll just soften this up. Now we have the whole canvas kind of conditioned with a little teeny bit of paint. Blending, softening. All right. Let's see that. A little soften. And then we're going to pick up fan brush, go into the titanium white, and just a little hint of alizarin crimson, just the tiniest hint of pink kind of in there. And we're going to just build a tiny bit contrast here. You can soften out the bottom just slightly with your fan brush, but be sure to wipe it off before you reload it with your titanium white. You tend to pick up a good bit of paint once you scrub it in, and you want to go back with a nice fresh color. work that, wipe it off a little bit, reload, and we'll see about kind of expanding a couple of these here. And let's just kind of work in a little bit more, just right on top of those nice and dark kind of moodiness. We kind of want to soften it, push it back. We don't need it to be very crisp. Then we picked up a bit of dirt. Let's wipe just a tiny bit of that off, and we can come back here and continue blending a tiny bit. This kind of does two things. It works in a tiny bit of dark into the base. Our light source is going to be from above, but it's a cloudy day, so it's kind of gray. Now we're going to pick up our big blending brush and just kind of wipe out some of the excess. We probably have a good bit of gray on the brush, and then starting from our lightest points, because our brush is most clean, we're gonna blend some of those out on the bottoms. Now, give that a little wipe out again. Right at the bottom, we're just really going to give that a nice, good soften. Now we'll lift from the light area up, and then it's very safe. If you pick up a little bit of dark, you'll see that. You can just kind of wipe off your brush and come back in and just get rid of that. We lift, soften out the base, and on the top, we'll kind of just very lightly soften those back around. We basically want to get out all of the brush strokes. And if you come to the side of the canvas, you'll see them. If you have too much paint on that canvas, you'll have a bunch of brush strokes, and you just have to be very, very careful. But we're trying to get rid of all of the noticeable brush strokes. And just soften it. You can do this with the right thickness of paints. It'll work. Just practice it. And if you have too much paint, you can come up and scrape some off. You can also wait a few minutes, and eventually it'll thicken up a little bit, that you can kind of give those clouds a good lift and blending without having too much of an issue. Now I'm just going to continue to condition this canvas and really get this gray color to kind of fill the scene. There we are. Now we're going to pop in a little mountain up in this top area. We're going to use this gray that we mixed up. Just grab a little bit of that. Grab a little bit of your cloud color. Marble the two together. You should have had a tiny bit of paint left over, but if not, you can always just mix up some of your own of the gray mixture, and then we want to marble it out with that white. Really pushes this mountain further away. So we're using a very grayed out color. We'll kind of have this come down. Something like that, and then we can use our blending brush. Everyone is off to work. It's another early morning for me in the studio. I was hoping to be done before all of the commuters, but I was too slow today. But I tried. It's still pretty early though. I typically will paint during kind of the middle of the day, but I've been trying to get some more things done. So anyway, up nice and early. Something that just made that noise. All right, now we've got that nice and soft. We're gonna add some highlights. Let's decide, I think our light source, because it's kind of a cloudy day. Our light is gonna be kind of somewhere over here, above us, maybe. So we'll just go with that. Titanium white, a little bit of our mountain color, that nice gray that we made. And then we're gonna grab just a touch of Prussian blue, and then we'll mix up another one right beside it with the same mountain mixture, titanium white, touch of bright red. Now let's start with our shadows. And then we can come in with a slightly crisper shadow color once we do our highlights, if we want to. But we might not need to, we'll see. All right, we've got some nice little shadows. We're gonna work our highlight across on the opposite sides, kind of pulling more or less in the opposite direction. Make sure that your paints are what's touching. Not so much the palette knife itself, although it does touch sometimes. It's more the paint. I'm going to use the small end of this knife, kind of get it in there. Maybe we'll have this ridge come down a little bit more. This one too. Something like that. Now we'll mix up a tiny bit more titanium white into our same shadow mixture. And then right on the tops, we're going to pull down a little bit more of that brighter shadow mixture. Then we just take our big brush and really soften and push that back. Just move in the opposite direction. We're kind of pulling up all of those in the same angles of the way that you pulled it down so that you don't lose that. We're just lifting up and softening out those brush strokes. There's a gnat. I gotta get him. I think I got him. Okay, just softening this until it's so soft. Yeah, looks pretty far away there, huh? Maybe we'll do just a touch, just a tiny touch with no mountain mixture. Titanium white and bright red. Marble that just a tiny bit. All right, I like that. Now, we're gonna bring this next layer in on top with the fan brush. Get that ready. We'll clean off a little area on the palette. We'll probably use a little bit of this gray mixture, a little crimson, a little phthalo green, and some white. Not too dark yet, but it's getting darker. We're moving closer. We're gonna have a nice ridge line right up here. All the way up, just there. I'm gonna load my brush again and hit just a couple of these. Nice. And then we're gonna move down, keeping those, they need to be touching each other side by side. We don't want to have gaps in between them. But you don't have to worry about what's happening down below here. We're really just worried about what's happening on the top. So you want to load your brush in a way that it's pointed. So you wiggle it through the paint and then pull it into a straight line, and that'll load the paint right on the end for you. Now, fan brushes, because of the way that we use them, especially if you do a lot of trees like this, the fan brushes kind of don't last very long. But you can still use them once they're all beat up. But if you're not getting really fine lines here, it could be time for a new fan brush. So keep that in mind. Once it starts to get really dull and beat up, it does get a little bit more difficult to make some of these precise kind of lines here. But sometimes that's not what you want too. So anyway, just some food for thought. We're just going to kind of work this on down all the way across. And I'm going to come back here just like I did before with a tiny bit of extras that are kind of a little bit higher up, maybe a little bit darker, maybe a few. Now, we will take our 2-inch brush, soften out just at the base. You're kind of almost pulling it down and tapping at the same time. Now we're just tapping very, very aggressively into that part that we just kind of pulled down and softened. And turns to mist. Nice. Soften. Now we'll lift those straight up. And then we can take a tiny bit of those dark and we can put in some sticks and twigs. Now let's do a little bit of some golds, some other types of trees. Maybe we were saying it's going to be kind of an autumn scene, so maybe we have some aspens, or I know in some areas there are some pine trees that are actually golden. We've painted them before. So let's see if we can get that. We want to work with a nice dark brownish red first, and then we can add some highlights later. So we're using red, yellow ochre, and dark sienna together on a fan brush. This is a different fan brush. I have two going now. And we're just going to pick out a couple, and we're just going to put them in. We'll keep them next to each other just to kind of make this a little easier. We'll maybe pop them down to there. Get some dark. Make sure it's dark enough. Add a little bit of Van Dyke brown, just a touch. Just a touch. I'm just pushing up with the fan brush. Maybe one more. Doesn't matter. Let's do a few more. Now this is going to be kind of what we're working into the background. This is all of the quiet stuff in the background. So it doesn't have to be, you don't have to try super hard. Some of the bottoms, whatever, the sides, just put in some of these colors. Let's do a little bit more dark. Maybe we'll have one more right here. Now let's go back to our other fan brush. We've got some other dark, our gray mixture. Get some of that back on the brush. And we're gonna put in a few other pine trees, our gray ones, different kinds of trees. It adds interest, different lighting, you know, could be catching the light. Maybe they really are those different pine trees. I think that's what they are, and then maybe some, we'll probably put in some aspens here in the foreground, so we'll see. Let's go with this for a little while. A little bit of titanium white. Just wanted to gray this out just a touch. Just tapping and moving back and forth. This isn't really a very fancy stroke by any means. I'm not trying to get particular. We want this to be kind of misty and moody back here, and we're probably going to blend some of this out again anyway. So we just want to get these ideas in just a little bit. Maybe we've got one up here, and then it kind of disappears and comes back right here. Something like that. Maybe this one too kind of pops back in. Let's do some blending with our 2-inch brush. Let's start in our gold ones. Come right into these. just tapping and moving that brush around, trying to get some of these to soften, and you can even be building other trees back here with your brush. Maybe some clouds. Isn't that cool how you can just get this mist? You just make it all happen for you. You just put it in. And if you're working with the right consistency of paint, now I didn't put a ton of paint on here, so now that I'm blending it out, I'm not like losing a bunch and I'm not moving a bunch and making it super messy, but I can just soften all of this. Look, that tree that was right here, it's still there. But it's just back. It's pushed back into that mist. You pick up a lot of paint sometimes, that's okay. You can even just get rid of it down below. Now, let's do a touch more there. Now I'm going to soften these a little bit more. Very lightly. It's almost like we can put the mist right on top if you just tap very carefully. Let me come back in here. Right here, we'll soften these. Now, we can take a little bit of highlight to those later. Let's work a few more in, and then we're going to work on our train a little bit. I'm excited about that. Let's do kind of like this hill is moved down, you know, like it's coming towards us this way. So we've got some trees down in the bottom. They're still going to be surrounded by this mist that we have. It's going to be just so wonderful. Look at this. Wow. So misty. Maybe we'll do one right here. We can just pop right out. Maybe we'll do another one. A little bit more paint. What we're really working on right now is trying to get a little bit of this dark in. We're going to have our train like kind of centrally located. So we can wipe some of this excess out if we want to. But really we want to build kind of the atmosphere behind this train. So that's what we're doing right now. We don't want this to be too much, too strong. We really want it to have that kind of atmospheric effect. So let's grab a little bit of our gold again, and we'll pop in some of those. Maybe we'll do some other trees. Maybe we could just do like nothing crazy, just push up with the brush and you can kind of tap around Maybe we'll turn that into an aspen or something later. Maybe we'll do that again. You could pick up your 1-inch brush and play around with different types of trees if you wanted to. A fan brush can work pretty well for you, so you just decide what you like better for yourself and use that. I'm going to pick up more Indian yellow and bright red, and we'll do just this one more right here that we can kind of pull out. It's going to be real nice. Just do something right here. Isn't that nice? A little bit more red, a little more Indian yellow, dark sienna. We just reload all of those colors right on the brush. And then we send it out. A little bit darker now. And we'll kind of just work a tiny bit down and forward here, and then we'll stop and pick that up later. Let's do some of the same slightly over here on this side. Maybe we'll pick out this one and kind of make this one a little bit bigger here. There we go. Nice. Work that one down. Maybe we'll have one right here. And then I think just as a reminder, we can put in a few sticks and twigs. These ones are getting a little closer now, so we might see something. Maybe we'll have some in here. Maybe we'll have, I think let's do a tiny bit of kind of our tops. We're going to have a bit of gold and browns in here. And then I want to bring this down. Let's add a touch of crimson to this now, getting a little darker into kind of some shadowy areas. And then we're going to work this down. Something like that, I think. Okay, now we can just start softening this out. We'll pick up our blending brush, wipe that out, and we're going to mist, make it nice and misty again. We have to be very careful now. There's a lot of paint on here in a lot of different areas, so we can't just go willy-nilly. But we can pick up some gray and some light and just allow it to work with the brush. Now I'm just tapping on these trees, and you can kind of just take the edge off of them, so to speak. And it really, really, really works. It really does, to get some of the excess paint off and then help you to make this nice and misty feel happen for you. So give that a go, and then we'll be able to put some highlights on here and make some of these pop later. No problem. All right, now we're gonna come in with a nice brand new sable brush and some titanium white, just to get those two on the brush. And we're gonna put in a tiny bit back here, a little bit of white. Since we pulled off a lot of that excess paint, it should work for you. But if it's not, you need to pull off some paint so that this paint will stick. We're just gonna kind of pick out a few areas and kind of work in some little swirlies and little bits. Kind of get that mist happening for you. Now with our blending brush, wipe it out, soften. We were just kind of applying a little bit of that white into some areas, and then we just soften it back. And you can do this until it reaches exactly how you want it. But I think I'm going to stop with this for now and work on the train. So first thing, the train is going to have, it's a steam engine, so it's going to have a big thing of steam coming up. So let's put that in. But you know what we could do is put in just a teensy little bit of a sketch so that we can line it up a little bit better. So let's do train is going to be coming from around this bend, somewhat over here, and then it's going to come around and then be like right in front of us. And then this is going to need to go like this and then come like this because it's right in front of us. And it's going to be nice and big. Kind of square, but not square. Oh man, guys, I've never painted a train before. I don't even think I've ever drawn a train. Maybe I should have thought of that. It's okay. We can do anything. There are no rules. We're the boss. And this thing's got some kind of fancy dancy grill thing. Don't let this guy run into you. That would not be fun. And then we have some things that are going to be kind of steamed out over here, so it kind of doesn't matter. I'm thinking flat and then kind of pull that down. Looks good, whatever. Let's do that. And then, yeah, we have our bottom with all of the steam that we need to put some dark down there and then have this shape. And then these, oh, what am I doing? It's gonna be like a window. Like you can see through, so that'll be great there. And this all will need to be dark. So let's just do that. This sable brush again works pretty well because it's going to be pulling off paint and just delivering us a consistent layer. So it'll either apply or pull off depending on what you have, and then that's how you know. But you can work with it. I'm just kind of trying to get some broad strokes of this thing in so that I can work on more of it later. And I'm sure there are plenty of people who would be able to go into far more detail on painting a train, but unfortunately, I don't know all the sneaky odds and ends of a train. So we're just gonna kind of do our best to make this one work. Something like that. And we'll have a light, and then there'll be kind of like, the smokestack. Maybe we'll try and make some of these different carts. Just trying to get a few ideas. Maybe. Let's do, I'm gonna put some browns in here. Kind of build just a tiny bit of this color. And do a little bit more red. Somewhat similar to these trees that we put in here. I think we need this to be like that. Then we can do gray. Let's try a little bit of Indian or yellow ochre and titanium white, bright red. Dark sienna. Yeah, that'll work. But we need this to be darker, so I'm going to pick up a new sable brush and we'll just kind of work in some more dark sienna, Van Dyke brown. Now we can soften that just a touch. Do a little more dark. Okay, nice and dark now. All the dark. Right, now I'm going to see if I can get this to kind of line up here. And then we can have our railroad tracks right here. So we'll need some dark there. And then all of this is going to be just kind of gravel, so that'll be dark too. And let's move in some dark in here. Nice. Okay. I'm going to mix up a little bit more gray mixture. Oh, that's not the right color. Get out of here, dark sienna. We want alizarin crimson and phthalo green. Now we'll just pick those up and flip them over a few times until they're nice and blended. Now, let's build some smoke, kind of coming from this train here. Just bubbling, bubbling and blowing. Okay, now we've got our darken. We're gonna pick up another paper towel, and then we're gonna push this around a little bit, soften out our edges, wipe off your brush. We're just picking up some of this excess and moving it. Now we'll do a tiny bit of that down here. You just pick a touch of gray. Tiny bit of titanium white. And then we're going to put this kind of in first. We'll probably have some moments where it's covered up, and then we'll be able to pull it back out. But we want to have some of this down here. So that we can work with it. Now we're going to take some titanium white, and let's work in some nice fresh steam kind of coming out there. It's just kind of behind our stack. And then we'll do a little more right that. And then we'll do another one. Maybe we should have started on the back one first. Let's do that. We'll start all the way back here and then layer it on top because that makes more sense. Now we'll do this big. We're kind of pushing, turning the brush and pushing it up, pushing that heavy paint up into a little bit of a cone, kind of rounded shape here. Soften out some of that, keeping it kind of swirling and working in a direction for you. Titanium white. I'm just relayering it with thick titanium white. Reload. Something like that. And then we will reload. Ooh-wee, I got a lot of yellow in that I did not want. Just wipe it off, I guess, and load it again. Then we'll push this one right up into that one. And we'll do one more right there. Wipe that out. It did not reload this time. I just wiped it out. It's garbage day in my neighborhood today. Soften. Just want to bring these two, kind of bring these layers together. And you do that by just softening out the base and almost making them just meet. A little bit. And a touch here. Maybe we'll just kind of round this out a little. Now we can take our blending brush and we can just tap. And then we'll give this plume of smoke a little bit of a rounded lift and pull. And we want to kind of push out those brush strokes. Awesome. Now I'm going to pick out the dark color we were using for these reds. We're going to get that brush, that kind of brown brush, out and go into our golds, Indian yellow, yellow ochre. Might be a little bit of bright red. Let's fix that. Nice. Now we'll just tap in a few highlights down these trees here. A little bit more yellows and reds. Use your titanium white to help you get the paint to stick if you have issues. Have fun. We'll pop on a little bit over here. Now we can do some sticks and twigs. And we'll just kind of tap some of those. Soften. Soften, soften. Now, let's use a sable brush and some more of our dark here. We'll just put in, we're scrubbing in some dark this is actually like a gravel, what's at the edge of a train track here in the US. A lot of time we have all these gravelly bits, and lots of other places they'll have granite from the area or something like that. So we're just gonna scrub in some of these, nice and dark on the edges. Just get that dark in. And then we'll do the same thing over here. Have to put this dark or else we won't be able to ever show any light over here, which we will want to do in a little bit. We'll put a little bit more dark across this middle here. Just soften that all together. Now, we can do a tiny bit more work on this train now with our darks. Okay, now we're just finishing with all of the darks on this train here, trying to figure, all of the main parts that we want to be very dark. I'm going to put in one cart here that we can very well see, and I think the rest we'll just kind of leave up to the eye to kind of imagine. We'll just darken up some of these. Now we'll have our track. And we'll put in this kind of basically a nice dark line, and then we can come back on and highlight that. Across these we'll have just the ties going across. They'll be underneath. You don't have to be very serious on this. Just get your basics in. the darks so that the lights can show. Here we have bigger pieces, bigger ties as we're closer, right? We need to get all of those. And then let's do this a little closer, kind of soften that back out again. Here, a little narrower so that it can kind of flow a little better here. Now, let's see. With my dark here, I'm going to put in some windows again. All right, let's use our palette knife. And we're gonna make sure it's nice and dark in here. We're gonna do this cab over here, or the train. We're gonna just grab some of this kind of goldish reddish color, add a little bit more dark, tiny bit of gray to it, and then we're gonna just kind of go for it here. Slightly rounded at the top, but not much. And now we'll get this one here. Now, let's use a little bit of our lighter colors here, Indian yellow, yellow ochre, and we'll pop on some highlight. A little darker now. Now across the top we'll have a nice light silver. Just mix up some gray and our paint gray mixture and some white. Just pull that down across the top. Then we use our nice gray mixture. Kind of emphasize windows. And I'm going to use almost some of this dark. We just want to lighten it a touch. Have a tiny bit of white in it, a tiny bit of marble in it. And then we can use it for some windows. We just have to be very careful because out here we want them very far away. So they're very small. And then they're going to start to get a little bigger. Try just a touch more in here. And then we come back with a lighter color. Let's do just a touch on the edges. And then we'll just try and tap. Let's get a little bit of liquid white into our blue mixture here, and it'll help it stick a little better. Just get a little bit on our knife. Something like that. And then we'll just kind of now, just a tiny bit of this bright Indian yellow and yellow ochre. Something like that. And a nice crisp bit across the top there. We'll throw in a few down below, kind of on the bottom of the train. We're going to mist a lot of that out, so you're not going to really see much of it. Maybe add a few things. And then, so many steps to this painting here. Let's do some gray and white. A little bit of this on the top. This way. And then this way on the edge. We'll have this one, give that some shape. Let's go a little darker on this side. And then we're gonna pull down lighter of the two on this side. Okay. Now, let's do dark again. Okay, nice and dark circle where we'll have some features coming out of. Let's add a couple. Let's do the window over here. There's kind of a little bit where you'll be able to see through. And then on this side, a little more gray. And then you can kind of just tap in a little bit of those details, almost like there you can see the trees through the window. Now we'll take a little bit of our light color and cut in a little outline. And we'll put in a couple little like there's a bar in there or something. Something blocking the view just slightly, but in front of the window. And let's do this little feature of this train. Has this nice accent here. And then we've got some fun little kind of struts. Like I said, I don't know a ton about trains. I just think that they're cool, and I wanted to paint one. I think I did that wrong. This is supposed to be, scrape that off. Dark. Little bit of light like this, and then like this, and let's do something like that. And we'll do, yeah, we'll leave it like that for right now. Let's do a tiny bit of little, we'll just kind of throw in some bits like they're sticking out around here, some dark. And right on the front, have that nice grill there. And I'm going to put on a few little details here, just some small bits. Oh. Okay, we're going to use a little bit more titanium white here now that this has sat for just a couple minutes. And we're going to add a nice bit more of this kind of crisp white. It is going to blend with what we have on the canvas. That's what we want. But I want to add a little bit of this contrast right here. And then we're going to get a little bit of gray. And this is going to be the plume coming straight out. This is kind of the last one closest. And then we can add just a few more details up here with our white. When it stops sticking, just pick up a little bit more. It needs to be nice and thick. Now we can wipe out the brush and bring this all together by just softening this layer together. For some reason my palette cam here, this is connected with a Wi-Fi, so sometimes it pops in and out. I've been noticing it popping in and out this video a good bit, so hopefully it hasn't been too bad for you. I don't see it every time, just out of the corner of my eye I can see the recording happening, or if I look. Now we're just trying to bring some of these layers together and soften that highlight that we just put on a little bit. Now let's do a little bit of titanium white, and we're going to scrub in some steam happening down here. Just trying to lightly go into that paint at the bottom of the train and bring it down into this white and move it around. And then we can just soften it ever so much. And we'll push some right out in front. Just like that. Maybe a little bit more, kind of like that. And right over here, it'll be doing something the same. Coming right out from underneath, kind of swirling. Moving that way. So we just get some nice thick titanium white, and with the sable brush allow it to pick up the colors that are already on the canvas. And we're going to just kind of work some of this in down below. Again, let it blend with what's already on the canvas. soften. I'm just using the same little rag here over and over, just kind of wiping out the brush a little bit and then moving back in. Here it's swirling this way, right? Coming out from under the train, pushing this way. Whoosh. What if let's get crazy here. What if there was this swirl that went through these layers and just kind of showed itself a little bit right up here again? And then we can come back and put this layer back on top. We just wanted to put this paint in, this kind of reddish paint in here, so that we can use it as this blending color, right? To kind of move it in. So now it gives that illusion of this moving right in between the two. A little bit more titanium white now. And we just pop that in. Look at that. Maybe it goes right on out like this. Wow. Something like that, right? Now we can get a little tiny bit more so that our eyes follow that. There it is, a little bit more focus with the light, using our crisp white. And our eyes are naturally going to want to follow that. Where is that going? What is that out there? Wipe this off, open up the bristles a little bit, and just soften it. Just a little bit. Maybe there's a little bit kind of working its way up here, right around, almost around the edge of this train. It kind of just dance in a little bit of this steaminess and work it in and soften that background just a tiny bit. And you can just add in a little bit of light. See, look, there went my palette cam. What happened? Disconnected from the internet. Whatever, man. Whatever, man. Sometimes I just don't know. But at least the main camera hasn't had that kind of issue in a long time. I worked pretty hard to try and at least get the main camera to be the most reliable one. But there's still so many things I'd love to do. So maybe someday we'll be able to get some really good, even better video quality is something that I'm really looking forward to trying to do. So it's on my mind, everybody. I'm gonna get a new rag here for this sable brush. Go in, and I just have a tickle in my throat. I just made this nice and open by getting the paint off and just pushing it into the towel. Then you can use it to blend. Works really well. And we'll pick up a touch of titanium white. And I just want to build this curl right here, kind of this way. Nice, just like that. Maybe we can do a touch of lightening out here on my apron. It's always something, right? I'm using this sable brush just to soften more and find some more softness in these areas. We can kind of bring a few more of these together and just find some rhythm with this smoke building. We'll just take a little bit of titanium white. Just like that. Okay, now, I really like that. I don't want to add too much more and take away from all of this fun stuff, but we can do just a tiny bit with our dark. You can kind of like tap into the bristles so it's open and then it's nice and soft. And we can build just a tiny bit of dark swirls. Just a few areas here and there if they need it. Oh, let's leave that for now. Yeah, I love that. That looks great. I guess it would be steaming primarily. Let's lighten some of this tiny bit. Now that it's been sitting for a little bit, it works really well. It's like my microphone tickling me. Driving me a little nuts. Okay, I'm gonna open up this sable brush and just soften out some areas on this train where it's kind of going back. There we go. Now we're gonna have a big light up here, so let's kind of wipe out an area for that. Then we're going to use the towel and really get a pretty smooth white, well, wiped out surface. It's not going to be white, but the back of our canvas is white, so we're trying to go back to that a little bit. Just soften around the edges a little bit more. We can always bring more dark back into this later to fix our edges, but what we really want is a good, clean spot that we can use to blend and soften and diffuse a really cool light that's coming from the front of this train. Remember, it's dark and moody, so we want to have that on here. Now, there's also going to be some light coming, reflecting off of these other areas, so we'll do some more of that later. But we can try and wipe out just a slight bit of this where we're going to have this blending here. We can just take any old brush, and then if it's clean, you can just soften that. There we go. I'm kind of bringing these brush strokes into the center, because this is going to be kind of rounded here. So we just kind of try and work these brush strokes in to give that illusion, but we'll leave that and we'll come back to it. Now, what I really want is to not get all of my brand new sable brushes dirty, so I'm going to wipe a couple out so I can reuse them and let them get dirty. I'm just going to use my brush wash here. It does need to be very clean because we're going to be using bright colors. Got something on this handle too. Brand new brush just out of the package and it's already dirty. Like on the handle and everything. Funny stuff. Okay. Now, right behind this light, there's actually kind of like a little number plate thing. I'm sure it is some identifier for the train. So I'm going to put that in. Well, I guess that wasn't quite the right spot. It's probably a little higher, like this. Wipe out. Now, put a little bit of a border on that with some of our light blue color that we have. And then we can just maybe pop in some, you can put some numbers if you want, some actual numbers. I'm just gonna pretend. Maybe they'll be okay, some numbers. Now, we are going to use red, bright red, a lot of it. Get that on the brush. And we're going to start with red in a circle. Now we can wipe off the brush a little bit here and try and push this out a little bit. We've just got a lot of thick paints on here, so they should all work together and you shouldn't make too much of a big mess. But sometimes that doesn't work, so be careful. I want it to be a little bigger, so I picked up a little bit more paint. We'll just make it bigger here. And I'll make sure it's in the center, Leslie. Good job. Now, wipe off the brush and soften out the excess paint. Clean that up there. Very good. Now, we're going to move a little bit more color out while we kind of pull out some of this dark. We just wipe it and then come back with more red. Maybe we lost a little, huh? Too much dark. This is like the coolest part about painting like this, is you just wipe it off. Try again. Now it's nice and bright. That's what we wanted. Crisp red. This gives a nice glow look to the light that we're going to put in here. This is just the back of it. The back of the light. Now what we really, really want is to soften this, so we're going to bring this together here. And then we soften the edges. We want it to kind of almost not like fully blend with the background, but we want it to be a very soft edge and not like a defined, super defined line, but you want the halo to be obvious. So we're looking for a little bit of a gradient here. A little bit more. Okay, now let's go back in with some red one more time, right in here. And then we're going to soften this. With our palette knife, we can come back in and just fix up our lines. That kind of helps to fix some of that up. We're going to need to put a little bit, tiny bit of dark. Now, the next color we're going to do is going to be kind of like an orange, bright red and Indian yellow, and titanium white. Not too much titanium white, but a little bit. Just wipe off anything before you reload it. I'm gonna wipe that all off now. And then we will soften it. You have to be really careful. You just kind of whisper through that. Oh, there it is. Okay, a little bit lighter now. Titanium white, Indian yellow, and then we go right back into the orange. This is going to be kind of the light. The actual light. The rest of it was just the glow for it. Nice, wipe it off. We're going to take some of this color and we're going to use it later. So let's mix up a tiny bit more and just leave that. Now, titanium white. With that bright color, it's really crisp white now. You know what we forgot to do was to just soften this, so that's okay. Just wipe it all out. And we want to just soften this a little bit. A little bit more Indian yellow. Right in the middle there. And then we're going to go with the lightest color. We just keep adding white into the same color. And then we're going to give this a little bit of a half stroke kind of in the middle, just a little bit round it out. There we go. Something like that. Now what we can do is we'll take our sable brush. I'm going to use one for blending now. And on this outside, just blend it. Now we can do a little bit more. Now it's bright, but I want it a little bit brighter. So we'll do our orange. One more time. Okay, now I have one going for blending and one for applying paint on my sable brushes. This is just, it works when you do that. You get multiple brushes going for you. Really good stuff here. Okay, now I'm going to pick up my script liner, go into some liquid white and into my bright color here. Now I can take this and kind of work it around into a few more areas. We have some more beams kind of connecting bits and stuff around. We've got some round pieces on the front of this train too, as we get moving around. And then we have more details. We do need some thin paint now to get some of these fun little details to kind of show up. We're going for kind of, let's maybe try and go a little bit more grayed out now. It's going to be less in the highlight, and it's just more of an accent color. But we do need it to stick. Whatever these are. Someone educate me and tell me all of the individual parts of this train that I'm painting. I'll look it up eventually, but I didn't before this painting. I remember when I was a kid seeing quite a few pretty cool retired steam engines. I think they're really neat. Now we'll do some of these. Little kind of rivet things. And then we'll give them a little something to sit on here. A little bit more dark. Some of these things you probably won't catch on the camera very well, but they will be here in the finished painting and they will be important because you will see them as a viewer and it'll be cool. So let's just put them in. Now on the front of this train isn't something that's glowing, but it does have a little bit of like a mantle piece, something, mantle piece. I don't know what this is. The front, something that maybe opens for service, or it's just some type of cool logo space. Let's wipe off just a tiny bit of paint because I want it to be not with blue. Okay, red, and we'll go into some brown, just a little, back to the red. Okay, now we get Indian yellow and titanium white. Get a good bit. And then we can load up a little bit more dark red. Red. Thin it down on just a little bit. There we go. Now let's do with our script liner a little bit of a line around the edge there. And we'll do one more. Okay, now let's do this big thing on the front. We just put in the dark, angle those the right ways. This should be up, this should be back. And we lost just a tiny bit of our steam on the bottom, but that's okay, we can get it back. Let's do with some titanium white and some gray, kind of a gray green. Let's do, just realize that these are kind of like pretty crooked, so let's maybe bring them up like that. Yeah, okay. Palette knife. We're gonna do this thing. We'll pick out a little bit of a gray. And then with a nice bright color, we're gonna do our lines. Straight up and down. That kind of worked. Same thing on this other side. Now we can do this kind of bit here and then this bit here. there's some kind of extra, probably, maybe this is the big horn on front. So we'll scrape out and put some dark. And then we'll put some red. And then some Indian yellow. Then let's do these little kind of bits here that we lost. It's pretty close, huh? Pretty close. Let's use a sable brush and just soften the underside of this. Titanium white and just a touch of Indian yellow. Nice and bright in there. And then maybe in a couple of these windows, there'll be some light. Just pull down and give it a little flick. And then after you do that yellow, you can come in with a little bit of red. Just a touch. Nice. Cool stuff. Who says you can't try hard things? Look, it doesn't have to be awesome. I mean, it's like pretty good, you know? We're just like giving the impression of the idea of the shape of this train. That's it. So we just give an idea and kind of let it go. Now I'm going to use my 1-inch brush and I want to add in like a rocky texture. So I'm just going to tap this out a little bit. Maybe we can add some dark in a couple spots. Who knows? We're just gonna give this a bunch of good texture. And then we're gonna come in with our palette knife, titanium white, and our gray mixture. Just a lot of that. Mix it up on the knife. And we're gonna start with, let's do our light area first. We're gonna have some light right around the train from its light. Something like this. Then we'll just kind of keep working this around. More rocks. Let that paint break and you'll get some really nice effects. We do want it to be pretty flat. Okay, now let's rework in a little bit of light. We're going to use some red and titanium white, and then our yellow ochre, Indian yellow. And then we'll just pop in. This is light that's reflecting off of probably just some moisture in this area. I'm kind of getting a feel of like, I don't know, some eastern areas, maybe Tennessee, I don't know. I'd be curious to hear what you think, what this reminds you of, but I don't have a specific location. Just kind of was doing the train, that was the specific. Let's just mix up a touch more. Maybe get even a little bit more white. Okay, I like that. Now, let's do our railroad ties. I'm going to get all of my grays and dark browns. And we're going to work this in. We want a little bit more dark. We'll just let it kind of fade out right here. A little round. Okay, there we go. Dark. Put in your dark. You can even pull out a few bits of that dark, just kind of like a little shadow. If you want in a couple spots. And right here, we're gonna have it coming out this way. A little bit bigger as they're closer. And here and there. We're going to put in some dark ties. Then we'll do the same with a little bit of a highlight. Kind of a light blue color. Just in some of these areas. In between the yellows, we just want to tap in a few. Kind of like the ties are differently colored. It just works. Now, on the edge of this railroad tie, we're going to run down thin, smooth line of light blue gray. It's the same kind of color we've been using. So we want it to be nice and thin. And then it's going to run down on the outside. The brush is round, so it gives that shape naturally. So you can just put it right on and it works. So we'll press here on the right. More pressure as we move down. And then you can use the brush again after you wipe it off to soften out the edges. Now if we want to, gotta clean out that brush even more. Liquid white into our gold and yellow. And we can just tap some on here. As it's kind of bouncing from this train coming down. I think it might look better with a palette knife. Right on top. And then we can even pick out a couple where we're really close to this light shining here and reflecting. We can reflect even more down like that. Look at that. And then here we do the same thing. As we put this gold and yellow right in there. There we go. Maybe we'll pull some kind of has a little wet effect almost. We need just a touch more of this to make it feel really like it's shining and like, you know, it's water and misty and stuff. There we go. Now let's maybe pop in a few more highlights with this bright color that we have. Have some more bits. Okay, now we just want to soften up the bottom here with some steam, kind of just fix that up there. All right, we're just gonna swirl and soften this steam around over here until it's just the way we want it. So cool. I bet you thought we wouldn't make it happen, but look at that. We totally did. Just popping in some more highlights, some more features. We'll kind of finish off the edges here by adding in some sticks and twigs and waiting for the garbage. All right, now that we've got this train coming around the corner, you know, I feel like this just needs a little bit more light here as he comes right out there. That looks nice there. Okay, let's finish off some of this foliage. We will get our highlight brush. We've got some lighter yellows and reds on here. And we're gonna pop in some highlights on those. Nothing crazy. Nothing too crazy. Let's just lighten this up a little bit over here. And we'll pull this out right in front like that. Push that away, hide that, no big deal. And I wanted to put in some real big trees. Boom, as I throw my brush. First one, actually. First throw today, I think. Ooh, now that I say that, I don't know. Probably. Anyway, let's mix up a bunch of dark crimson. Now I'm just gonna start throwing everything on the ground. Oh my gosh. Alizarin, crimson. We've got some browns. We have phthalo green. So we've got all of our main darks over here. Van Dyke brown, dark sienna. Okay. And we're gonna just load her up real good. Now this train is coming at us, so we're gonna be kind of in the trees, and I really want it to feel like we're in the trees. So this one is gonna be right out there that we're gonna see through some bristles. Really get that dark to work for you here. Kind of almost like we're framing the scene. You could totally leave this out if you want to, but I just feel like it would really set it in. There was this one cool train that I'll have to try and include in the description below that I got to go into the tunnel. They closed it for just a day, and we got to go in and walk into the tunnel, and it was surrounded like this everywhere else, and so it really felt like you were just like down on the tracks looking, and it just looked so big. The tracks felt really big, the train felt really big, and the tunnel felt huge. It was so cool. They're so powerful and ginormous, you know? They're so cool. So anyway, this tree over here is just gonna give us that feeling of that big valley, or kind of tall looking out perspective, all that stuff. Words are hard for me right now. I'm still sort of waking up. Just drinking some coffee, which I really like in the morning. It's pretty delightful for me. Let's do another one over here. Something like this. sometimes those piles get a little flattened out and you can still use all that paint. You just have to pile it up again, and then it'll help you unloading the brush. Now these bristles, the branches, they get so heavy as the tree comes down. They start turning down like this. Up here they were kind of facing up because they're smaller and lighter. These ones are heavier. They're really hanging. Big old branches out there. There they are. Oh, that is so cool. I love this. I really wanted to have just a super moody kind of a feeling here with this painting. Oh, and it's really working here. I'm liking it a lot. I'm going to use just my palette knife and kind of clean up the edge of these trees out here. I just kind of pull that out. We'll pull in some sticks and twigs, and then we'll put some little grasses that are just popping out as we move out this way. There they are. Maybe a little bit more red over here. Then let's use our script liner, and we're gonna just go into the paint wash here, brush wash, and get our dark. Let's put in a few just dark sticks and twigs out here. Right, let's not get too carried away there. Maybe we'll do just a touch of color on these titanium white, Indian yellow, that one. Very important. And we'll go into some of the phthalo green, and then we go right back into the gray until we kind of get this medium color here. A little bit of green, a little gray, but really we want it mostly pretty dark. And then we'll come up here and tap in a few. I guess we could go potentially a little bit lighter so that it shows up just a little bit of color, just a little bit. It's moving closer. We're right, this tree is kind of right next to us. We could probably even smell it. Ooh, it smells good. Pine, crisp, evergreen. Let's pop in a little bit over here too. We don't want them left out. Love that so much. Okay, you know what we really just need? It's just probably some more mist. What if we did, I don't want to get too carried away, but if we get some titanium white onto the sable brush, what if some of this just went out here? There, like that. Here, out in front. That's nice. And I'm seeing We just need a tiny little bit of color over here. We'll get some of our greens. And we can do just a pop with our other fan brush, the lighter one that we had going. Just give it a little bit of a wipe off. And we can go into some Indian yellow and yellow ochre right over here. We're gonna pop on a little bit more highlight. I'm pretty stoked on this right now. Stoked. Stoking fires. Get it? Because of the steam? What? Yeah, I did that. I know. I'm so punny. Get out of town. Okay, we need to stop painting and get Kaylee somewhere off camera so that I can laugh because I'm just being ridiculous right now. I'm going to soften this out a little bit more. Okay, now, I think we need just a little bit, stop, a little bit of light right here, a little bit more, that's nice. A few more sticks and twigs and a signature, and we're gonna be there. So cool. You know what we need out here? Just a few. Sticks and branches and things. Some dark ones that kind of go in on top. All right. Yeah, that's it. I'm going to sign this thing. Go into some red. Maybe some liquid white and some bright red. We want them nice and thin. Thin enough that it is like super liquidy. Oh my gosh. It's all because I said I hadn't thrown anything. I threw it. Now I picked it up. Let's go right over here on this side and pop in a little signature. All right, everyone, I'm all done with my painting for today. Thank you so much for joining me in the studio for this week's episode of Tutorial Tuesday, episode number 62. My name is Kaylee. I paint wet on wet landscape oil paintings, and I want to hear from you. Send me an email if you were inspired by this painting today. If you are extra super inspired, you can leave some comments below, give me some thumbs up, or even subscribe to my channel to be a part of our Tutorial Tuesday every single week. Tune in 5 o'clock Mountain Standard Time where we do a live premiere and chat. This is the first time the video will ever be shown online. We all watch it together and just chat about what we've been up to during the week. Y'all can ask me any questions that you have that are painting or not related, and I try and get them answered for you. Until next week, my name's Kaylee. Smile and be happy, friends.